Yeah, man.
And so you just kind of digest the news of the day.
It's an affirmation.
I'm glad some good is coming out of this stuff. This is Robert Mueller.
Robert Mueller putting the squeeze on the president. Sit in my room. Trump is toast.
I like that one. That's
Trump is toast. Yeah.
Trump lost his mind after Jim Carrey declared Trump is toast on Kimmel's show. The orange turd couldn't handle being the butt of the joke when two comedy legends teamed up to roast not just him, but his entire marriage. Want to see exactly what made Trump throw his phone across the room? Kimmel compared America under Trump to a broken device that needs unplugging, while Carrey switched from jokes to a serious takedown of how Trump normalized hate. The meltdown that followed was epic. Quick favor before we move on. If you appreciate this content, consider giving this video a like and subscribing to the channel. Believe it or not, more than 92% of viewers haven't subscribed yet. It's free and only takes a second, but it means the world to us. So, did you subscribe already? Great, thank you so much for your support. Now back to the video.
To relieve the stress, you know what I mean? It's a stress reliever.
And here we have...
That's Space Force.
That's the Space Force, yeah.
That's the beginning of Space Force. I mean, you try and you try and you give it all. Give it all to her.
You've seen one comedian take a shot at Trump before, but what happens when two comedy powerhouses join forces? That's exactly what went down when Jim Carrey stepped onto Jimmy Kimmel's stage, creating the ultimate comedy tag team that Trump never saw coming. This wasn't just your average late-night segment. It was a carefully orchestrated takedown that hit Trump exactly where it hurts most. The magic of this particular roast came from how Carrey and Kimmel bounced off each other, creating what you might call a comedy multiplier effect. Instead of just one famous guy making jokes, you had two masters of comedy working together, each one amplifying what the other said. It's like when you're arguing with your Trump-loving uncle at Thanksgiving, but suddenly your smart cousin jumps in to back you up with facts. The power dynamic completely shifts. What made this tag team approach so effective was how they balanced their different comedic styles.
You know, this administration is a rabid dog, and it's turning us upside down. And all, you know, as far as I'm concerned, it's as obvious as the nose on your face. You know, these really negative forces like the Steve Bannons of the world are convincing us that we're separates. You can make a bad decision about a candidate. It's not who you are. It doesn't mean you're dumb. It doesn't mean you're different. It doesn't mean, you know, the trouble with what's happening right now is these...
Carrey brought his trademark intensity and physical comedy, while Kimmel delivered his dry, cutting observations. Together, they created something Trump absolutely hates: intelligent humor that makes people both laugh and think critically about his leadership at the same time. The segment worked on multiple levels because it wasn't just silly jokes. These two comedians skillfully wove serious political commentary between the punchlines. This combination is basically Trump's kryptonite. He can handle being called names, he does it himself all the time, but what he can't stand is being made to look ridiculous while someone simultaneously exposes the real problems with his leadership. When Kimmel jumped in after one of Carrey's jokes to point out how Trump's statements constantly contradict his actions, it wasn't just funny, it was revealing. Their back and forth highlighted how Trump says whatever sounds good in the moment without any concern for consistency or truth. This kind of comedy doesn't just entertain, it educates the audience by showing them patterns they might not have noticed on their own. The brilliant part of their approach was how they used humor as a Trojan horse to deliver serious criticisms. People who might tune out a straight political analysis will happily watch two funny celebrities ripping on Trump. Before they know it, they're actually thinking about the contradictions and problems with his leadership style that normally get buried under his constant stream of distractions. What really got under Trump's skin was how this segment didn't stay confined to late-night TV. Within hours, clips were everywhere online. Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, multiplying the impact exponentially. No matter how much Fox News tried to shield him, there was no escaping the fact that two of America's most beloved entertainers were turning him into a punchline that millions of people were laughing at. The moment that hit hardest wasn't actually a joke at all. In a masterful tonal shift, Carrey transitioned from comedy to deadly serious commentary, looking straight into the camera to break down how Trump has normalized division, dishonesty, and hatred in America. This unexpected pivot from laughter to sobering reality gave the segment an emotional weight that pure comedy could never achieve. It's like being punched in the gut right after someone tickled you. You never see it coming. Trump's reaction to being double-teamed by these comedy legends was entirely predictable. True to form, he immediately attacked Kimmel personally, claiming the host had once begged to have him on the show. This desperate attempt to reassert dominance is textbook Trump. When someone makes you look ridiculous, try to make them look desperate instead. But his defensive response only confirmed what the comedy duo had already demonstrated, that Trump can't handle being the butt of the joke. The reason this comedy tag team was so devastating to Trump goes beyond just hurt feelings. His entire political persona is built on projecting strength and dominance. When two beloved celebrities join forces to portray him as absurd rather than powerful, it directly undermines the image he's spent decades cultivating. Comedy has a unique ability to strip away pretense and reveal truth, which is precisely why authoritarian types throughout history have always feared being laughed at more than being opposed. Authoritarian leaders hate being laughed at because comedy exposes their true nature, and Kimmel found Trump's most ridiculous contradiction yet in how he runs the government. Remember when you were a kid and your parents said you could have pizza but then suddenly changed their mind? Now imagine that happening with people's actual careers and livelihoods. That's exactly the circus Kimmel exposed about Trump's leadership style. The White House didn't just casually mention potential job cuts in a tweet or offhand comment. They issued an official, serious business memo warning federal agencies to prepare for mass layoffs. We're talking about real government employees with mortgages, kids in college, and health insurance needs suddenly facing unemployment. Not exactly a laughing matter when you're one of those families wondering if you'll make next month's rent. But just when these government workers started updating their resumes and cutting back on expenses, Trump went full Trump. In what can only be described as leadership whiplash, he immediately started contradicting his own administration's warning. First, he threatened that employees would be fired if they didn't share accomplishments. Then, he backpedaled, saying nobody would be fired after all. And finally, in what might be the most bizarre presidential statement in recent memory, he declared they would be semi-fired, or wood-fired, with caramelized onions. Kimmel brilliantly transformed this real-life governmental chaos into the pizza menu analogy that perfectly captured Trump's approach to leadership. It's like ordering from a restaurant where the chef keeps changing what you're getting after you've already paid, Kimmel joked. Except instead of dinner, it's people's entire careers on the line. The audience wasn't just laughing. They were witnessing a masterclass in political satire that cut straight to the heart of Trump's management style. What made this segment so powerful wasn't just the laughs it generated, but how accurately it reflected a pattern we've all seen countless times. Monday, build the wall. Tuesday, Mexico will pay for it. Wednesday, the wall is already mostly built. Thursday, we never needed a physical wall. It's governance by mood swing, where policy positions have the stability of a house of cards in a tornado. The genius of Kimmel's approach was turning his viewers into critical thinkers rather than passive consumers of jokes. As he broke down the timeline of contradictory statements, you could see people in the audience having those, "Wait, did he really say both those things?" moments of realization. This wasn't just telling people Trump was inconsistent. It was showing them precisely how and letting them reach their own conclusions. As the bit progressed, Kimmel's pizza menu evolved into what he called a choose-your-own disaster adventure, where every policy fork in the road led to some new calamity. You can have the fired supreme with extra chaos, or maybe you'd prefer the conflicting statement stuffed crust. The audience was in stitches, but the underlying message was deadly serious. This is no way to run the world's most powerful country. What really seemed to irritate Trump supporters in the comments afterward wasn't the jokes themselves, but how accurately they portrayed the reality of his leadership style. One angry viewer wrote, "This isn't fair. They're just using his exact words against him," which might be the most unintentionally honest offense ever posted online. The pizza analogy worked because it made complex governmental dysfunction immediately relatable. Everyone's had the experience of a messed up food order, but most of us haven't managed federal agencies. By connecting these experiences, Kimmel helped viewers understand exactly why Trump's leadership style was so problematic, not because he's some evil mastermind with a grand plan, but because he's fundamentally unprepared for the responsibilities of his position. And that's ultimately what made this segment of the roast so devastating. It didn't portray Trump as malevolent, but as incompetent, a distinction that strikes at the very heart of his carefully constructed self-image. The entire Trump brand is built around the idea that he's a business genius, a master dealmaker who wrote The Art of the Deal and can fix America's problems through sheer management prowess. Kimmel's pizza menu mockery didn't just question that narrative. It took it out back and put it out of its misery. If destroying Trump's business genius image wasn't enough, Kimmel and Carrey took aim at something even more personal. His visibly uncomfortable marriage to Melania, the self-proclaimed alpha male who boasts about being the best at everything, couldn't even get his own wife to hold his hand in public. This particular roasting struck Trump where it hurts most, his fragile ego that desperately needs to project a facade of success in every aspect of life, including his third marriage. The comedy duo didn't need to fabricate anything about the Trump marriage. They simply pointed out what millions of Americans have observed through countless public appearances. Melania's body language around her husband has become a subject of fascination for viewers, who can't help but notice her apparent discomfort. Those stiff smiles that vanish the moment she thinks cameras aren't watching, the robotic posture when forced to stand beside him at official functions, the icy stares that could freeze hell over when Trump attempts any public display of affection. Kimmel's joke about Melania being instructed to dress like a goth Al Capone at an official ceremony wasn't just funny. It cut deep by suggesting she lacks any agency in her public image. The comment painted a picture of a woman who doesn't even control what she wears, a puppet whose strings are pulled by her husband's whims. Rather than portraying her as a willing participant in the Trump circus, the joke positioned her as another victim of his controlling nature. For a man who has crafted his entire persona around dominance and control, nothing could be more embarrassing than millions of people watching clips of his wife repeatedly swatting away his attempts to hold her hand. These moments of rejection have become internet gold, replayed and analyzed endlessly. Each time Melania pulls her hand away or sidesteps his touch, it's not just a personal rejection, it's a very public undermining of the strong, irresistible man Trump pretends to be. Body language experts have had a field day with these interactions, frequently noting how Melania seems to recoil from Trump's touch. The comedians didn't need to exaggerate this dynamic. They simply shined a spotlight on it, transforming these awkward moments from internet memes into devastating comedy fodder. The audience's knowing laughter confirmed that everyone sees what's happening, despite the couple's attempts to maintain the facade of marital bliss. Jim Carrey's brutal assessment that the Trump marriage represents capitalism without conscience might be the most devastating blow of all. With 4 carefully chosen words, Carrey reframed their entire relationship as nothing more than a business arrangement, a cold transaction masquerading as love. The implication that Melania tolerates Trump solely for financial gain strips away any pretense of romance or connection between them. Kimmel twisted the knife further with his final jab, describing Melania's book as smelling like Slovenian prenup ink. This wasn't just a random joke. It directly targeted the widely held perception that their relationship is built on financial terms rather than emotional ones. By reducing her book to a symbol of contractual obligations, Kimmel reinforced the narrative that this is a marriage of convenience, not affection. What makes this mockery so powerful is that it exposes the embarrassing truth that Trump's own wife seems to dislike him as much as his critics do. For someone who bases his entire identity on being loved, admired, and respected, nothing could be more humiliating than the suggestion that even the woman who took his name and shares his home can barely stand to touch him. It undermines not just his public image, but his private self-concept. Trump can sometimes brush off political attacks by dismissing them as partisan hit jobs. But jokes about his marriage hit different. They expose vulnerabilities he can't easily defend against without appearing even more pathetic. How does one respond to jokes about your wife avoiding your touch without confirming the problem? Any angry denial only makes the situation more cringeworthy and draws more attention to those awkward moments. The brilliance of targeting Trump's marriage lies in how it connects to broader criticisms of his character. If he can't maintain a genuine relationship with his own wife, how can he foster real connections with world leaders or understand the needs of average Americans? If his most intimate relationship appears to be transactional, doesn't that reinforce concerns about how he views all human interactions? The personal becomes political in the most devastating way. You know what's hilarious about all this? When Trump faces political attacks, he typically brushes them off with his signature bluster. But comedians? That's his kryptonite. The research shows his meltdown wasn't about policy criticism. It was the personal jabs at his marriage that sent him over the edge. Comedy exposes what spin doctors can't hide. When Carrey and Kimmel picked apart his personal life, they revealed the thin-skinned reality behind the tough guy act. Trump can handle rally crowds chanting his name, but he crumbles when laughter replaces applause. The true power of comedy isn't just entertainment, It's truth-telling dressed in punchlines.